Hello, in episode 9 of History of India, we are dealing with the Vedic age in that we come to the later Vedic period. The later Vedic period ranged from 1000 BC to 600 BC. If we can see this 1000 BC, it is also the time when Iron Age started. So later Vedic period and Iron Age fall into the same period, they start in the same period according to this. There are both literary as well as archaeological sources to study this period. We have two sources, literary and archaeological sources, to study later Vedic period. The later editions, especially the 10th mandala of Rig Veda Samhita. So we know Rig Veda has got 10 books and the 10th book is added during the later Vedic period. And the Sama, Yajur and other one Vedas or the other Vedic texts which are assigned to the later Vedic phase. So this is the phase when 10th mandala in Rig Veda and all other 3 Vedas are added to the literature, Vedic literature. So these books, Sama, Yajur and other one Vedas, they belong to later Vedic phase of later Vedic period. And now we'll come to some form of knowing about the headings of the later Vedic age that we are going to see. The first is economy. There is a shift from pastoralism to agriculture, that to mixed farming. In early Vedic period, we saw that there was mainly pastoralism as the main subsistence for the people. For example, they were only depending on cattle herding, they were only depending on taking these cattle to grazing fields and pastures, only that. But now agriculture has taken its prominence along with pastoralism, and also that to mixed farming. Earlier we have seen in early Vedic period that people were oriented towards shifting cultivation. That means they would have a land, they would cultivate and they would abandon the land, or they would shift to some other crop. So that is shifting cultivation. But now they started mixed farming. Mixed farming in the sense they are having a land, they are cultivating in the same place, and they are also rearing the animals on one hand. So on one hand they are rearing animals, on the other they are cultivating. So that means they are going to have a settled time, settled place, in a settled time and place of that particular age. So we can have these archaeological sources. That is why we have these archaeological sources, because this time of later Vedic period showed that people were having a settled place wherein they have to cultivate and also wherein they have to graze the animals, herd the animals. So that is, they are having pastures and cultivable lands at the same place. That is mixed farming. The next thing is rituals increased in religion. New gods came up and we saw the early Vedic age gods, and new gods are added to this religion. And idolatry has started. Idolatry is worshipping idols, worshipping some forms of things that are made as idols and worshipping them. So people started making their own shapes into idols. So that is the shift in religion or the advance in religion. The next thing is increasing subordination of women. Women are deteriorating, their status is going down and down. Society was patrilineal only. Earlier also we saw this, it is patrilineal, but now it is shifted towards exogamy. So exogamous is giving their children into marriage with other gotras, with other people outside their gotra. Earlier we have seen endogamy. That means there is a particular clan and people would be giving those their children into marriage in that particular clan only. But now there came this exogamy, in which they are going to give their children to marriages with outside gotra people. So that is one new thing that came here. And emergence of griha. Earlier we have seen there used to be clans. In clan there used to be families, but the major unit is clan only. But now griha is a family, and family took its prominence, not the whole clan. Each family got divided, or they are maintaining their families with more importance than to the clan. So the emergence of griha came in later Vedic period. The next advancing thing is rise of metallurgy. So more metals have come into the people, more usage of them has come, and more weapons than tools. In early Vedic period there were more tools for agriculture and all, but weapons have started more in later Vedic period. So this is one shift of metallurgy from tools to weapons. And system of exchange. So barter system like early Vedic period is continuing still in later Vedic period. And system of exchange, there is some advancement even here, that is cattle are given as system of exchange. Along with that, Niska is given as system of exchange. Niska is any gold ornament, and Satanama is a unit, is some weight of gold, like we measure gold in tulas, kgs or grams. So like that, gold is given in a weight, a system of exchange, as a medium of exchange. And the next one is Karsnala. Karsnala is the unit of gold. So all of these are belonging, all these terminology, Niska, Satnama, Karsnala, all of these belong to just gold. So the system of exchange has taken a new shift, that is, it has even reached to exchanging gold things also. So that is one advancement. So this is a brief map about what changes and new things have emerged into society in later Vedic period. Now we'll see the texts that emerged in later Vedic phase. Samaveda is a book of prayers, and we have discussed about each book also in earlier video. So it is a book of prayers and chants which are from Rig Veda. So from Rig Veda, Samveda Samhita has come from Rig Veda. Prayers and chants will be there, but they are modified and they are set into tunes. So Samveda has got tunes, songs. So for the explicit purpose of singing songs during ritual. So that is the purpose of Samaveda Samhita. The next one is Yajurveda. As we have read earlier, Yajus means worship. So these rituals are accompanied with recitation of hymns. So some hymns are recited in Yajurveda. So the rituals and the hymns in this Samhita document the social and political milieu of this period. So they show the social trend and political trend of later Vedic age. So Yajurveda, not just knowing about the Vedas, but to know the social and political milieu of that period will also be, it is also aiding in knowing these things of later Vedic phase. The next thing is Atharva Veda. So Atharva Veda contains folk tradition of that period. We saw in early Vedic phase that Atharva Veda was speaking about routines. So some routine life of people and all. Here it is modified into folk traditions along with routine, speaking about the routine life of the people of that period, and represents popular religion. So which Veda represents popular religion? It is Atharva Veda. It is a good source for understanding socio-religious conditions of common people at that time. So socio-political conditions will be known by Yajurveda. Socio-religious conditions will be known by Atharva Veda. So these are useful in knowing these things of that period. These Samhitas are followed by Brahmanas. So we have seen Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. So these are some derivatives of the original Vedas. Samhitas, Brahmanas, and these two. So after that, coming to Brahmanas, they explain the socio-religious aspect, also like Atharva Veda and Yajurveda Samhitas. Besides, we have earliest Aranyakas and Upanishads as well. So all of this supplement the Vedas, these four things. So this is about some Vedic literature during later Vedic phase. Here are some characteristics of later Vedic period. We'll see. The archaeological evidence of this period is substantial. So we have built evidences for later Vedic period. The regions to the east, such as Kosala and Kashi. So these are two regions, two very important kingdoms in ancient Indian history. So these two, the regions towards the east of these two areas, and Videha and Magadha. So these four regions are very important to know about the evidences about later Vedic period. Magadha is a very important empire, Magadha Empire, in which four important things started. So Magadha is the place where four important things took birth. That is how we must remember. The first is Buddhism. It is famous for Buddhism. Jainism, it is famous for that. And two very important kingdoms started in Magadha. So the first kingdom is Mauryan Empire. So Mauryan Empire and Gupta Empire. So these two things also, empires also have taken their start in Magadha. So this is a very important place, and it is one of the 16 Mahajanapadas which we'll be seeing later. Very important place. So they all speak about the later Vedic period, though they don't form the core. They are not the core areas but important areas. It is possible that changes such as desiccation of Saraswati, drying of Saraswati river, or demographic pressure may have led to this shift. So there is a shift in movement of people from early to later Vedic areas to periods to these areas. We have seen the earlier geographical territories of early Vedic period people, and they are shifted to these areas now. The reasons being drying of Saraswati or some other pressures. Important sites of later Vedic period are, there are more than 700 painted graveyard sites. So these painted graveyard sites will reveal what are later Vedic age places. So they are found in some important areas like Panipat. Panipat is a very important place in ancient Indian history. There are three important wars that took place in Panipat around 16th century, 1526, 1556, and around 18th century, that is around 1761 and all. So three important battles. Panipat is in Haryana between Chandigarh and Delhi. And next thing is Purana Kila. Purana Kila is also called Shergarh, or it's also called Old Fort of Delhi. It is in Delhi. And Atranji Kera, Ahit Chatra, so these are in Uttar Pradesh. Hastinapur, Kurukshetra, it is in Haryana. Kurukshetra is famous place where the Mahabharata battle has taken place. Hastinapur is the capital of an ancient Indian kingdom called Kuru. So that is famous place. And Bhagavanpura, No and Jakera are in Rajasthan. So these are some important sites suggestive of later Vedic period evidences. These settlements show a broad similarity with material culture reflected in the text in terms of housing, use of metals, knowledge of crops, animals, pottery, and serve as useful corrective to the text, which often exaggerate the material basis of the society. So sometimes some texts exaggerate the material base of the society. Society is based on a lot of material, but it is not that way. The housing, animals, pottery, crop, metals, all of their use was all primitive. That means they are in a starting stage but not so well developed. And coming to economy, the widening of geographical horizons made possible by the availability of vast tracts of fertile alluvial lands. So the economy is slightly shifting. If we can see, it was pastoralism in early Vedic period. Now it is shifted towards agriculture because of some fertile alluvial lands coming up. Of Ganga, Yamuna, Doab. Doab is the land between two confluent rivers. So that Ganga, Yamuna, Doab is very fertile with alluvial soil. So agriculture is coming up. And the middle Ganga valley is also very fertile. It is accompanied by a marked shift in economic production from relative predominance of pastoralism to emphasis on agriculture. So there is a shift in economy in this view. This is not to deny the continued importance of pastoralism, but still pastoralism was existing. We cannot say it is totally gone and replaced with agriculture. But hand in hand, pastoralism and agriculture were going on. That is, mixed farming was still going on, as it is testified by later Vedic texts. Initially, the land was cleared by means of fire. So in order to cultivate the other crop after one crop is over, they have to clear the land. So that for that, it was cleared by fire. So fire was used then. Later, burning was supplemented. Again, burning was removed because burning would cause pollution or whatever problems they saw with burning. They stopped using fire to clear that agricultural land. But they used some socketed iron axe found at No. So they saw that socketed iron axe is very useful to clear the land for the next crop. So this is found in No, that is in Rajasthan. So because of that, we can know that land is cleared in later Vedic period by socketed iron axe. Iron was introduced around 1000 to 800 BC. Why? Because this is the time where Iron Age started. The growing importance of agriculture is attested from the later sections of the Rig Veda. So Rig Veda even speaks about that agriculture is growing in its prominence and importance in later Vedic period. We get it from Rig Veda also, which refer to such operations as, in Rig Veda we see these terms of sowing, cutting, threshing and winnowing. So these are some cultivation, farming related words. So these terminology we see in Rig Veda, which shows that the importance of agriculture is growing on. There are several references in later literature to plows driven by oxen. So they used this method to plow the ground. Earlier in early Vedic period, there was not written so much about agriculture, but here we see these words and also plows that were driven by oxen for doing agriculture. The plow was probably made of hardwood. So it was made up of hardwood. It is possible that iron plowshare, which must have been more effective, were used towards the end of the period. So iron plowshares must be more effective than hardwooden plowshares, but they used hardwooden plowshares. But iron plowshares emerged in a later period, later Vedic period. So that is what is written here. So for this, an example has been found at Jakera. Jakera is in Rajasthan. So iron plowshare is found at Jakera. Earlier we have seen that something is found at No, that is socketed iron axe. Socketed iron axe is found at No, and here iron plowshare is found at Jakera. So by this we can say that Iron Age is so much felt during later Vedic period in Rajasthan, in No and Jakera. A fairly wide variety of crops is attested in both the literary and archaeological records. So in later Vedic period, wide variety of crops are grown. Barley, Yava, we have seen this even in early Vedic period. It continued to be important, but a new grain. It used to be very important, but is considered as a new grain. And rice was used to be called as rihi. So what is rihi? It is nothing but rice. The name of rice in later Vedic period assumes importance. So slowly from barley or wheat we are growing towards rihi. So rihi has become, or rice has become, the staple diet of the people in later Vedic period. Rice transplantation was probably still not practiced. So obviously transplantation kind of things might not have developed because that was all primitive society, primitive agriculture. So the yields would have been low. So yields would have been low as not unlike these days as we use transplantation methods. Some of the other grains along with this are wheat. Wheat used to be called as goduma. Even today we call it like that, which appears to have been relatively insignificant. What is more significant is rihi or rice. The text referred to some pulses also. So some pulses that are found in later Vedic period. We don't see all of these in early Vedic period. So this is some shift. Moong, it used to be called as mugda. Urad dal, we know about urad dal, it used to be called as mas. Millet is used to be called as siamaka. These are the names used then. And sesame, this is an oil seed, it used to be called as tila. And also sugar cane is also mentioned in this text of Rig Veda of later Vedic period. However, we know that the later Vedic period was neither purely agrarian. So it's not purely agrarian, nor it is a well advanced one in iron technology. So it is all a primitive society, primitive economy, which has just started to grow. So it is all not purely that or not purely this. The rich iron ore mines of Bihar, we know that Bihar is famous for iron ore. So iron ore mines are over there, but those people were not knowing about this rich iron ore mines of Bihar. And the technology of smelting iron was primitive. Primitive in the sense they have just started. So they have started smelting of iron. In early Vedic period or in Harappan period, we have seen casting of bronze. So casting of bronze was done, and a name is given to that. That is Sair Perju. The name for casting of bronze is called Sair Perju. That used to be practiced. And here we see iron, smelting of iron, that has just started in later Vedic period. Mixed farming included cultivation and herding was the occupational norm of the period. So cultivation and herding, this is the occupational norm in later Vedic period. It led to the rise of sedentary settlements. So they have to cultivate in a place and they have to grow their cattle, or they have to be seeing about their herds. Further, they can't move like nomads. In early Vedic period, we saw people were mostly nomadic because they wanted to have good pastures for grazing of their cattle, so they used to move away. But here they have to have a settled life for looking after two things. So sedentary settlements have come up. Painted graver settlements show both an increase in number and a remarkable stability lasting over 2 or 3 centuries. So this is all suggestive that people are having some settled life and they are not moving to other places for a lot of years or for 2 or 3 centuries. They are staying in a single place, which would suggest a fairly strong agriculture base. So only when they have these agricultural lands in a place, they don't move away. So this must be the reason. The growing importance of agriculture necessitated changes in organization of production. So when you have more production, you have to organize that product. You can't just leave it and leave the crop. So the production increase made them more organized. So thus this organized form of agricultural production gave rise to some land ownership. So when there is so much of land and so much of production coming over the land, so there starts this ownership of that land, this concept which is not seen till now. So land ownership has started, which still was still rather nebulous. It's not totally developed, it is vague and unclear. There is no preferences to prayers for land in the sacrificial context. So there are no prayers for land. Earlier we have seen in early Vedic period there are prayers for cattle because cattle was their wealth. But here, though land is increasing in its importance, there are no prayers for land. Further, land does not figure as an item of dana. Even for dana also land is not given. We have seen what dana is in our earlier video. Even cattle are given as dana and some ornaments are given as dana, but not land till the very end of this period. But at the end of later Vedic period, even they started giving land as dana or dakshina, like that. Nevertheless, the question of the granting of land and its merits and demerits are debated for the first time in the legend of Vishwakarma Bhavana. So in some book they are debatable that whether land is given as dana or not. But land has achieved its importance in later Vedic period, that is clear. Further, the rights of the Vis or the clan are explicitly recognized in Satapada Brahmana. So we have seen what Brahmanas are. They are some applied or derivatives of Vedas. So in Satapada Brahmana, one of the Brahmanas, so in that we see the right of clan. So the rights, this word has also seen its start in later Vedic period, which states that the Kshatriya can grant land only with the permission of the Vis or the clan. So the Kshatriya, the ruler or Raja, so he can grant some land only on the permission of the clan, not on his own. So for this, the evidence is Satapada Brahmana. It is written in that. This textual reference, this suggests that communal ownership of land over which the Vis had the majority participatory rights. So Kshatriya or the Raja has to go for the clan's choice, the clan's right. So this suggests that the clan has so much of importance and they have major participatory rights about whatever the Raja does. So that is one thing. All of this is from Satapada Brahmana. What is more significant is that the patrilineal household, where the male person takes the lineage all the time in each generation, the griha was recognized as the basic unit of agricultural production. Earlier, a clan or a group of houses used to have one agricultural land in common, but here griha or single house person, the head of that person, a father generally, he is recognized or his house is recognized as the basic unit of agricultural production. So each family has got some land, that is the basic unit now. There was a consequent shift from the situation where the entire clan owned the land to one in which the Grihapati emerges as the de facto owner of the land. So it is a consequent shift. In early Vedic period, we have seen the entire clan has land. Now Griha, the house, and Grihapati, the head of the house, he emerges to be the owner of a land. So each family, you can say, it got little divided in a later Vedic period, which he cultivated with the assistance of members of the family. So there are no laborers, agricultural laborers are not mentioned, but the family members used to cultivate their land, as well as limited number of Shudras and slaves. Though there are slaves and Shudras, very limited, but the main role is with the members of the family. Thus the Vis or Vaishya, the clan has emerged to be called by a new name called Vaishya. So a new caste is emerging here. So the foundation of castes, the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and all these we have seen in early Vedic period, but now they are refining into further levels in later Vedic period. Characterizing the household economy become the mainstay of the economy. So Vaishya, the word, the clan or Vis, this word is mainly related to mainstay of the economy. They were the producing class in the society. So as they are the mainstay of the economy, they have emerged into a producing class in the society. They are the producers, agriculturists, and were the source of wealth to Kshatriyas, Rajanya or Raja, and Brahmanas, priests. They don't involve, these two, Kshatriya and Brahmana, they don't involve in agricultural practices, cattle and all, but they get the source of their wealth from these Vaishyas, the producing class, in the form of dana, dakshina, like that. Bali, which we have seen in early Vedic age, who did not actively participate in food production. Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, their work is not this. The redistribution of booty secured through war. So we know that there used to be wars, and booty, they used to get some things out of war, slaves, money, or slaves, cattle, some things like that from there. They used to be redistributed in assemblies. We saw in early Vedic period all of this. So warfare was recognized as means of livelihood for the Kshatriya. So the war person who used to go and fight is a Kshatriya, and whatever booty they used to get, they used to redistribute. So the means of livelihood for Kshatriyas is this main booty. So the major part used to be with the Raja out of the wars, booty out of wars. It was probably confined to the upper two categories of the Varna hierarchy. So now the upper two categories of Varna hierarchy has started in early Vedic period. Now the upper two categories have come up. They are Kshatriya and Brahmana. Bali appears to have become less voluntary. So in early Vedic period, people used to come and give Bali to the Raja voluntarily, but now it has reduced. People are not voluntarily coming forward and was probably obtained through the use of force or certain occasions. So, on some occasions, the Raja used to get bali or gifts from common people by force. So, that is some advancement in bali. The importance of bali as a source of income for Kshatriyas increased partly owing to the decreasing importance of earnings from cattle raids and partly to the fact that agricultural producers provided a greater and more certain surplus. This system of bali is increasing so much because Kshatriyas are not going for cattle raids, so there are no much cattle raids as it is seen in early Vedic period. So because of decreasing cattle raids, the booty will be less, cattle will be less. So Kshatriyas' main money or main surplus, main wealth comes from bali. So they are forcing people to give them bali. And these bali will be given by Vaishyas because they are producing class or the mainstay of the economy. The Vaishyas gave bali out of gratitude for protecting the cultivated lands, because a Kshatriya would go and fight for the protection of the land. In turn, the land owners, the producers, Vaishyas would give these Kshatriyas for protecting their land, the bali. So that is how the society used to run about the economy. The bali thus acquired by Kshatriyas was used partly in offerings and feasts and partly as dakshina offered to priests. So this bali Kshatriyas would not take totally, but they'll use for feasts. They will use for some offerings, sacrificial offerings. We have seen there are some sacrificial offerings that must be done by kings, which we'll be seeing now, like Ashwamedha, Yagna, Vajpaya, like that. So for them, for the offerings, for the cost of the offerings, they used to use this bali, and for also some feasts, and they have to feed or give dakshina to the priest for these rituals. So as dakshina also, they used to spend this bali on these things. A significant development of interest here is the increase in sacrifices. Later Vedic period marks more rituals, so more idols started, so more religion came up, and so more sacrifices have also started. So there are some important sacrifices like Rajasuya. So this is actually the inauguration of a king. Vajpaya, this is about elephant, the sacrifice of an elephant. Ashwamedha is about Ashwini means horse. So this is some yagna related to horse. So these things also started. This implies both growing expenditure. So more the sacrifices, more the expenditure. In general, the expenditure is increasing. So the concentration of wealth is in the hands of the upper two varnas, because brahmanas have to come and perform this. Without them, this won't happen. So they have to give in dana, so dakshina. So their wealth is increasing. And when Kshatriyas have to do that, the Vaishyas have to give them money to do this. So the wealth is now concentrated in these two classes, which emerged as upper classes in that time. A certain amount of development is evident in various crafts. So some crafts are developed. In early Vedic period, we saw crafts are only related to weaponry or some fights, wars, and things related to wars, like leather persons for making chariots, metal people for making some weapons for war. But now crafts have developed a little bit more than that, especially as a result of use of iron, because iron age is coinciding with this time. So iron is increased, so crafts have also increased. Reference to metals. So some examples of Karsnayas and Shyamasa. So reference to these metals and to the smelters and smiths. All of these belong to later Vedic period. These terminologies, smiths, smelters. So these are some terminology of metals, metal makers, metal smelters, smelting of iron, we saw that. So such people and such things have improved in later Vedic period. So they have some archaeological evidences to speak that iron weapons and tools increased, and painted graveware sites have also shown these iron things also in those places. So that means in later Vedic period, along with painted graveware, we also see iron usage. So there is some importance of metallurgy in later Vedic period by this. However, it is significant thing. The one significant thing is the preponderance of weapons over tools. That means predominance or importance of weapons more than tools. It is a main point to be remembered with later Vedic period, which would suggest that the impact of iron technology on agriculture was rather limited during this period. So iron technology's impact was more on weapons and war than on tools in agriculture. It also comes to the notice that the technique of metal extraction was primitive and wasteful. So the smelting of iron, we saw it was primitive, and even metal extraction. So though iron is abundantly available, or it is known as Iron Age, the whole of metal extraction is primitive. It is very in a starting stage, and it is all wasteful also. During that time, it's not much developed. Other crafts such as leatherworking, pottery, reflected in the standardized wheel thrown, painted graveware, carpentry. So all of these things of crafts are continuing. What we have seen, all of these in early Vedic period. So what we have seen there, they are continuing. Carpentry, pottery, leatherworking, and wheel thrown, painted graveware. So painted graveware, pottery is based on wheel technology, wheel making. Construction and the manufacture of jewelry was also practiced. Two important things under craft that are added in later Vedic period, which are not seen in early Vedic period, are carpentry and jewelry. Even wheel thrown, painted graveware. Leather working, pottery we have seen were also practiced. The manufacture of glass was known. So this is also a new craft thing in later Vedic period. Weaving is there. So in early Vedic period, we saw that weaving is associated with some women responsibility. So weaving is still continued. It is practiced by women within the household. There seems to have been some development in trade. So trade also developed, crafts developed, even trade also developed, and there is some reference to sea trade during this period, which is not seen in early Vedic period. Further, apart from cattle serving as the medium of exchange, we have seen some other things grew as medium of exchange. Niska is a gold ornament, possibly representing a fixed weight of metal. And the Satanama, it is the weight of the gold or silver. Satanama, which is considered of 100 smaller units, known as Karsanala. So 100 small units of gold. So each unit is called Karsanala, and all of these, if they are 100 in a number, so these small 100 units will make up Satanama. If that is made into an ornament to wear, that is called Niska. So these gold things have emerged to be under barter system or system of exchange, which possibly preceded the fully developed coinage system. So in early Vedic period, we have not seen these weights and all. We have just seen barter system in which good used to be given and a good used to be given. But now gold, coins and things like that, and the weight of gold, they are all coming up. That means further they have led to the starting of coinage system, some weight system or coin system that emerged in 6th century BC. So coinage system emerged in 6th century BC. Earlier to that, we see this Karsanala, Satanama, Niska, things like that. Towns or nagaras are also referred to in the latest part of the Vedic literature. We haven't seen this in early Vedic period. Towns, nagaras. These may have been the political centers rather than centers for crafts and manufacturings. They used to be political centers. But these point to a growing socio-economic differentiation. So developing towns, developing nagars, it means that there is some differentiation in socio-economic conditions of the people. So people with with good wealth used to be in towns, in nagaras, and there used to be some divide between the people, which is not seen in early Vedic period. The archaeological records also yield evidences of the beginning of urbanization. So we can also see urbanization in later Vedic period. So that urbanization is seen in some places called Ahichatra, Kausambi, and Hastinapur. So in these important places, we can see that later Vedic period urban centers are present. Ahichitra, Kausambi, and Hastinapur. Ahichitra is on the bank of river Kali. Kali is the tributary of river Ganges. Coming to society, here the growing importance assigned to Varna. So Varna system is importantly growing, Varna hierarchy. It is most noticeably seen. The Varna distinction could have been in the beginning primarily between the Arya and the Dasa. Primarily, there used to be two Arya, Dasa. Arya divided into senior, junior. That is, senior is Raja, Rajanya or the king, and Vis is junior. Vis are normal other clans, small clans. So that is Arya. However, gradually the system widened into Brahmanas on one hand and Shudras on the other hand. So Aryas are referred to as Brahmanas, Dasas are referred to as Sudras. So that is how it emerged later. Coming to the framework of Varna system, how it slowly emerged in later Vedic period, Arya Varna, Vis or normal clans. Under Arya Varna, two important major topmost things emerged, topmost Varnas, Brahmanas and Rajanyas or Kshatriyas under Arya Varna. Vis clan, also called Dasas as it is referred here. So Vis clan, under that came Vaishyas and Sudras. So this is how the society started differentiating itself into 4 Varnas. The Brahmanas, the highest category. So Brahmanas considered as the highest category. Earlier, merely one of the 17 kinds of priests. So priests are all Brahmanas or priests, but all priests are not Brahmanas. So there are 17 kinds of priests. One kind of these 17 kinds of priests is Brahmanas. So these Brahmanas have emerged to be the highest category. They become virtually synonymous with priesthood during this phase. So priesthood, though there are 17 types of priests, but priesthood majorly denominated only Brahmanas in later Vedic period because of their growing importance. Considerable stress is laid on cooperation between Brahmanas and Rajanyas. So both of them have to work hand in hand, the king and the Brahmanas, the priest. The declining status of Vis, the clan's status used to decline, that is Vaishyas and Shudra status was declining in later Vedic period, and the ascendancy of Kshatriya and Brahmana is started. So these Shudras and Vaishyas, the normal clans, are decreasing in their importance, and these Arya Varna, that are Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, they are increasing in their status. So this difference has started in later Vedic phase. They both had to cooperate. The Brahmanas and Rajas have to cooperate to ensure proper ordering of the society, which implied the subordination of Vaishya and Shudra. So Brahmana and Raja used to be friends. They used to cooperate with each other, and they used to take the assistance of Vaishya and Shudra. So that is how Varna used to be cooperative on one hand, and the subordination of Rajanya in turn to Brahmanas. So all of them used to have a coordinated framework, though there are differences. This was fraught with tension as both the categories claimed preeminence. So, but both the categories, Rajanya and Brahmana, they used to claim for preeminence. They used to claim for dominance. So they speak about themselves greatly, each one differently, but they used to cooperate. But both of them want to have their dominance over one another. So that used to be some small contention between these two Varnas. Nevertheless, mutual dependence served to cement ties, as the Brahmana was dependent on the Rajanya for material support. Rajanyas used to give this gift to Brahmanas for every sacrifice, dakshina, in the form of dakshina. So they used to depend on the Rajanya for this dakshina, Brahmanas. While Brahmanas used to support Rajanya for his position. So for his position to be legitimate, to stand as a king, he must have the support of him. To get this dakshina, he must have the support of him. So in that way, both of them are very dependent on each other. Such legitimization was especially important in situations where other claims to positions of power and authority, hereditary primogeniture. So primogeniture is the concept of eldest son. So the eldest son must be king, like that. So such concepts used to be there then. So that primogeniture, hereditary, in deciding these things, Rajanya needs the help of Brahmanas to protect their position. So like that, they used to be interdependent. They're all not universally recognized, but they're all in primitive stage, this system of hereditary, system of primogeniture and all. It also seems that the Vis resisted the process of distancing from the Kshatriyas. So even Vis are not happy, the clans are not happy, Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and Shudras, they are not happy that they are going on deteriorating in their condition when compared to Kshatriyas. They are not happy with that to some extent, as there are numerous rituals to ensure that the Vis does not abandon or turn hostile towards Kshatriyas. So with fear that this Vis can turn away from the king used to do some sacrifices, prayers that these people obey him. Simultaneously, the Vis in turn also had differentiation among themselves. So even the clans also had some differences among them with the growth of settled agriculture. So now the rich and the poor has started, because who does more hard work or who does have more land and more agriculture, amongst this Vis he is considered as rich, and who is not with much is considered as poor. So they also have some differences like that. The more prosperous households became Vaishyas amongst them, and they're successful. The Gramani, they are considered as Gramani, they are called as Gramani, Vaishyas. The poorer members who do not have much good households or much good agriculture, they are regarded as Shudras. So even they have differences, the Vis or clan. The Grihapatis too held yagnas, not just kings, even the house heads, Grihapatis, have got yagnas so that their wealth would increase. And like that, their wealth is channeled to Brahmanas. So for every sacrifice or yagna, a Brahmana must come. So for him, this dakshina has to be given. Like that, Brahmanas' wealth is increased during later Vedic period because of increasing in yagnas and sacrifices. The reference to Shudras point that they might have included artisans and laborers. So Shudras are mainly under laborers and artisans. Slaves, or both dasas and dasis, they are regarded as slaves, are also mentioned. But neither the slaves nor Shudras appear to be very significant. They are not with good socio-economic standards, probably involved in production only. They are also involved in production but not with good socio-economic status. They only have some limited extent of production. They are denied the right to perform sacrifices. So as they are poor, the society, see how the society is transforming. As they are poor, they are not given the right to perform sacrifices. The Varna system get further tied up with the concept of Dharma. Later, after this Varna system came the Dharma system to establish systematic functioning of the society. So whatever might be the reason, but the differences are starting that we must observe. However, the Varna Dharma system used to be just Varna system, now it is Varna Dharma system. The Varna Dharma system was not properly developed in Vedic society. Varna system is properly developed, but Varna Dharma system is not developed. Dharma system, it took its foundation only. There are references to certain special rites such as Vratya Stoma. So Vratya Stoma, it was devised to incorporate outsiders within the Aryan fold. So there are some special rites also along with other yagnas, in which one of the special rites is Vratya Stoma for outsiders, for foreigners who come into Arya fold who are not Aryans. So for them, some special rites called Vratya Stoma are done. They suggest that amalgamation of Aryan and pre-Aryan social institutions was going on. Amalgamation is mixing. So by this Vratya Stoma, we can know that amalgamation or mixing among people is happening, and even outsiders are welcomed through some sacrifices, through some yagnas or rites. They suggest that this amalgamation is happening. Certain new deities. So earlier we saw some deities in early Vedic period, but now new gods are emerging. The first new god is Rudra. He became more important in later Vedic period. And some possibly indigenous rites such as Agni Kayana. So these are some rites that increased, some rituals that increased in later Vedic period, new rituals. So they are all incorporated into Vedic rituals. There are clear indications that the women were being increasingly going down. The status is reducing. So untouchability was not there. Untouchability is not there in later Vedic period. It would emerge later. But now there is just Varna system totally developed. No untouchability. The institution of Gotra during this period, it appeared very strongly. Institution of Gotra, it seems to have been particularly important for Brahmanas, while later as against tribal endogamy. So Gotra system was increasing, and that too mainly in this clan of Brahmanas, and against some tribal endogamy, marriage within a tribe. So that we saw in the start of the video that exogamy is increasing. That means marriage with other clans. But endogamy, the society was against endogamy in later Vedic period. They developed a full-fledged system of Gotra exogamy. So marriage system has shifted to Gotra exogamy from endogamy in early Vedic period. So that is marriage outside Gotra, signifying widening socio-political ties. So marriage used to be done for social political ties also with other clans, between clans. So this has become one instrument. Gotra signified descent from common ancestor, and marriages could not take place between couples belonging to same Gotra. So this is concept of exogamy, the whole of this para. And 3 ashrams in life emerged. So they are nothing but 3 stages of life. They emerged in later Vedic period. They are the Brahmacharya, that is studentship. Next one is Grihastha, household. So in this household only Grihapati, Griha, the concepts come. So Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, that is partial retirement from household life. From Grihastha life they would retire and live in forest. That is Vanaprastha. Vana is forest. The 4th stage is Sannyasa. They would leave everything in this, the last stage of life, or completely retire from any participation with the world. So these schools, these ashrams, stages of life are mentioned in Upanishads. The stages of life are mentioned in which books of later Vedic period? They are Upanishads. Education, which began with the investiture ceremony, Upanayana. So there used to be a ceremony before sending a person to education. So that is called Upanayana, that ceremony. Investiture ceremony, investiture, the meaning of it is when somebody is going to a higher grade or to incorporate in someone with or to give someone a higher rank, that is called as investiture ceremony, an upliftment. So that is called Upanayana before sending to education. It was the prerogative of upper classes, but only upper classes used to follow that, mostly for boys. But some people also used to do for girls also this ceremony. Coming to polity, here we see the emergence of Janapadas, such as those of Kuru Panchala. Kuru Panchala or some kingdoms in ancient Indian history. Kuru Panchala, there are Janapadas. So their authority extending over the upper and middle reaches of Ganga and Jamuna Doab. So these Janapadas are nothing but a group of tribes forming in a place. They are just Janapadas. Even they emerged to be called Mahajanapadas in later periods. So the examples are Magadha, so such examples are there. So these, but they were initially called Janapadas, not Mahajanapadas. So these are some tribal groups living in some places. We see them in Kuru Panchala initially, in these places called kingdoms called Kuru Panchala. They are extending in these areas of upper and middle reaches of Ganga, Yamuna, Doab. While Jana was used in the sense of people or tribe. So we have seen what Jana is, it is nothing but tribe. So this is mentioned in Rig Veda. Now the Janapada meant the area where the tribe settled. So Janapada is the area where tribes settled, a place. Consequently, the nature of chiefship also changed. So slowly the system is emerging and the nature of chiefship is also starting. The Rajan or the chief. So chiefship, the nature, the Rajan, his nature is also changing. There is some changing in the class of Rajan. The Rajan or the chief was no longer involved in cattle raids alone. He used to go for war or cattle raids and bring booty. But now his nature is shifting. He is not doing that, but emerged only to be the protector of the territory where his tribesmen settled. So these Janapadas, in these Janapadas, Raja used to protect that territory. That's it. The Rajanyas who were of the superior lineage during the Rigvedic period now became Kshatriyas. So this we know, that is those who held power over dominions, which is the literal meaning of the word Kshatriya. So the meaning of the word Kshatriya is power over dominion, power over an area. The Vis or the clan had to pay presentations to him in lieu of the latter's protection. He used to give protection, they used to give gift, that's it. And thus the status of Vis was more subordinate to Kshatriya lineage. So as he is a protector, all other clans used to be subordinates or under him. Bali and Bhaga gradually assumed the forms of regular tributes and taxes. So slowly tributes, taxes are increasing in the name of Bali and Bhaga. We have seen some assemblies in early Vedic period called Sabha, Samiti and all. In later Vedic period, they are increasing in their importance. Reference to Rajas in this assembly or the Sabha suggests that they help the king in his duties. So these Rajas, as now the Council of Ministers help the Prime Minister or Chief Minister, in the same way these assemblies used to help the Rajas in decision making. So they help the king in his duties. The office of the Raja was not based solely on birth. It's not based on birth, but the Rajas it was restricted to the Kshatriyas, but the choice of Rajas, though it is restricted to Kshatriyas, it is not that anyone can take. It used to be under the decision of Samiti, Sabha and such assemblies. The clans used to decide the Rajas so that they would have a check on who the king would be. In the absence of firmly established principles of hereditary and primogeniture, we saw that hereditary, the first eldest son must be the king, that is primogeniture. So there is no firm established things like this. Consecratory rituals became very important for the ruler in order to assert his authority and proclaim his superiority. So to say his superiority, the first eldest son need not come forward, but to say that he must have some rituals. Consecratory rituals used to be held, someone used to be selected and rituals used to be held. That's it, how a king is done, or becoming a king. These sacrifices were found to be relevant in later periods when new kingdoms and new monarchs emerged. So newly kingdoms are coming, so newly monarchs are coming, so newly consecrations of these kings are happening. So all of that is going on. It has started in later Vedic period. So they used sacrifices to give some legitimacy to their power. So why these Rajas used to do sacrifices? We saw some sacrifices like Ashwamedha, like that. So why they used to do sacrifices? To protect their power, that's it. The Rajanya, however, was not yet a sovereign. Though he is a king, he is not the sole sovereign person authoritative there. The fact that he was elected, as we have already seen in early Vedic period, that he was elected with the clan. So he is elected and he could be removed if he does some wrong. His power, since he was answerable to the clan. So all his works are answerable to the clan. So there is a check. He is not the sovereign one. Also, he did not appoint the other Rajas who helped him in carrying out his duties. He cannot appoint his co-Rajas. All of that is done by clans. They were chiefs in their own right. A republican form of government was evolved by the Shakyas and the Licchavis in northern Bihar. Shakyas and Licchavis are very two important kingdoms that came into India. So Licchavis and Shakyas, they emerged from North Bihar. They introduced the republican form of government. Republican form of government is nothing but people and their representatives rule them. So people elect representatives, and that representatives and the people themselves, they rule they're the heads of the government. So this form is brought by Shakyas and Licchavis, these two kingdoms in northern Bihar. The nature of conflicts within the tribes also changed. Earlier they used to fight for cattle and land and such things. Fights are no longer mere skirmishes, not over cattle. They are no longer these petty issues like about cattle. The acquisition of land was an important element here, not cattle. The growth of people within the tribes provided impetus to acquire more territory. So as people are growing, as population is increasing, so each clan wants more land, so more territory. So that is the contention, and that is how wars used to happen. So for that war, you need iron weapons and chariots. So that's how these all increased along with increasing population. Horses raised efficiency of the fighters. The Mahabharata depicts an intra-clan warfare between Kauravas and Pandavas in Kuru clan. So in Kuru clan, there is a fight in Mahabharata between Kauravas and Pandavas. One example about this fight with iron weapons, with horses, chariots and all. So all of this is the scene of warfare during later Vedic period. Coming to religion in later Vedic period, religious tradition is documented in Sama, Yajurveda Samhitas and also in Brahmanas, while the non-Vedic or perhaps the folk tradition is given in Atharva Veda. Okay, the normal Vedic tradition in Sama, Yajur and Brahmanas. Non-Vedic tradition of later Vedic period is recorded in Atharva Veda. It is also called folk tradition. The fact that the Atharva religion tradition was considered to be part of the Vedic literature suggests assimilation of different cultures and beliefs in Vedic religious system. Atharva is dealing with different people, different folk traditions. But why is it added in religious books? Why is it added as a Vedic literature? It is because to know some different cultures and beliefs. So belief is related to religion. So that is the reason, even though Atharva Veda is dealing with tradition, folk tradition and all, it has entered into Vedic texts. Sacrifices became very important under religion in this period. So they got some public and private characters. The public characters like Rajasuya, these used to be done before all people. So they are public characters. Vajpaya, Ashwamedha, horse, elephant, inauguration of a king. So these used to be done in public. They were conducted under a massive scale. Whole community used to participate. Some ceremonial yagnas were carried out to rejuvenate the earth and add to fertility. Even for fertility, fertility of the earth. For production, agriculture, they used to do some yagnas. The rituals accompanying the sacrifices became elaborate and complicated. So the rituals grew complicated. They need to have more professional people to do these rituals. They are nothing but the priests or brahmanas. Rules or vidhis. So rules are also called as vidhi. For performing each sacrifice, as rituals are increasing, rules about them also would increase. So all those rules are formulated. They are increasing. The offerings are increasing. Sacrifices are increasing. So the patron or the yajamana. So according to the needs of the patron, needs of the yajamana. So if a household, if that yajamana wants to have some yagna for one reason of that household, so that is a need of that yajamana. So for that one sacrifice, for some other work, one other sacrifice. So like that, offering sacrifices, yagnas are increasing. Sacrifices were now endowed with mystical symbolism. So some mysteries, mystical symbolism, mysterious powers, and all of them are added to ritual acts in later Vedic period. The priests became the chief beneficiaries because with increasing of yagnas, their their dakshina will increase. They'll work more. So they'll have more work to do, more yagnas to do. So their wealth and status and power are increasing of Brahmanas. Regarding Brahmanas, power, wealth and status are increasing with increase in religious rituals. The early Vedic gods who represented natural phenomena. In early Vedic period, we saw some natural phenomenon for rain, Varuna, Agni and all were slowly discarded. They are just replaced with some personification of natural elements, like divine beings became more complex, not just for rain, not just for Agni and all, but they got complexed. It was no longer easy to find the natural element which represented a particular god from the hymns of the later Vedic period. So this is suggested in hymns of later Vedic period. So the deity's status is changing. So the character of the tribes from pastoral to sedentary agricultural groups, because now they are in need of agriculture production, and also they are giving more deities to agriculture, not to cattle for pastures and all. So the prominent Vedic gods are Indra and Agni, lost their importance. So they are in early Vedic period we saw Indra, strength, Agni for fire, but they lost their prominence. Now the importance is given to Prajapati. He is considered as the creator. He has become important. Rudra, he has become important. These are new ones coming up. Vishnu, Pushan is used. He's used to protect the cattle. He's regarded like that. So like that, new people are coming. New deities are created. So now Pushan is regarded as the god of the Shudras. So here also we have Varna system working amongst gods. The Atharva Veda recommended widely prevalent witchcraft, spells, magical rites. All of these are in Atharva Veda. These things are increasing. They invoke the gods of Vedic tradition for reasons which are trivial and individualistic. For each thing there is some spell for each thing they want. So like that, things are increasing in religious aspects, as you can see. Mystical things are happening. The Atharva priests officiated in these religious practices. So now they grew prominent and more important, and they grew their knowledge in these things. So many godlings, spirits, pisajas, rakshasas, all these evolved in later Vedic period. So for good fortune, one would go for these things. If you want your enemy to be done wrong, for that there will be one spell. If you want your friend to be good, there will be one spell. So like that, the rituals and things like this are increasing so much in later Vedic period. The Ashwins were entrusted with protection of agriculture. Now agriculture is becoming important, so now a god for agriculture. So that is Ashwin. And killing of rats, because rats would destroy crop. Savitri is given prayers to fix a place for a new house, to fix a place. She is the goddess created. Pushan was invoked to bring harmony, safe delivery of babies. Surya is invoked to remove demons. So like that, for each purpose they want to happen, they created a god. Some symbolic objects began to be worshipped. So symbol or idolatry started. Signs of idolatry noticed in later Vedic times. The doctrines of karma, maya, transmigration, identifying of individual soul. So they're growing deeper and deeper in these religious aspects in later Vedic period. Mukti, the foundations of different systems elaborated by later writers and accepted as the main tenets of Hinduism. So the religion of Hinduism as a whole is developing in later Vedic period. So they all find their first expressions like maya, karma. So the concepts of these in Hinduism started in later Vedic period. They are mentioned in Upanishads towards the end of this period. One of the most famous one is Chandogya Upanishad. There are so many Upanishads, but one of the very important one is Chandogya. Thus the materialistic aspect of religion was discarded. Earlier there used to be only materialism. Now it is going into philosophy. Maya, karma and all such things are coming. Most Upanishadic thinkers are men, especially Brahmins and Rajas. So Brahmins, Rajas, they are the writers of Upanishads. Occasionally some few women used to be there. Gargi is one example as woman thinker of Upanishad who participated in debates in royal courts. Gargi, a later Vedic period woman who used to take active role. Poor people rarely took place. Poor people are not allowed like today. One famous exception is Satyakama Jabala. He was a poor man but who was a student of a Brahmin teacher. So he grew important in later Vedic period regarding Upanishads, royal discussions, debates in courts. He is a student of a Brahmin teacher. His mother is Jabali. He is a famous person to be remembered. His teacher's name is Gautama. Satyakama Jabala. His teacher is Gautama, his mother is Jabali. He is Upanishad thinker, a famous Upanishad thinker, though he is a poor person. So that must be remembered about Satyakama Jabala. Many of the ideas of Upanishads were later developed by Shankaracharya. He is a philosopher, theologian of very high prominence in ancient Indian literature or history. So Shankaracharya. So he must be remembered. So these are some Upanishad thinkers we have from later Vedic period. So all of this completes the later Vedic period things: economy, trade, crafts, polity, and finally religion. So like that we have done with later Vedic period in episode 9 of History of India. And thank you.